Hey, welcome back to the NOTCAST. It's been a while since I've done one of these, hasn't it? And as you can tell by the t-shirt and the title, today number 416. Good God, that's a long time coming. I'm going to be talking about The Cure's, I think it's their 14th studio album that was released on the 31st of October, Songs of a Lost World. So let's go deep undercover, because I have lots of thoughts about this. And rather than do some hastily tossed off quick 6-minute thing that's going to be watched by 70 million people going, oh dude, it's amazing, I feel music at a far more intrinsic level than that, and there's an awful lot in this album, which I think I'd like to talk about, if that's okay, amongst many other things: live shows, formatting, everything, the whole kit and caboodle. There's loads of it, but let's start off with the big news. I think 1st of November, 31st of October, The Cure released their first album in 16 years, Songs of a Lost World. Here is the Asai Records limited edition. I think there's been about 7 or 8 different vinyl editions of the albums. I am a poor fan. I only have 4. Which compared to some people who've got all the different colours and all the different masterings and all the different versions, and the heat-sensitive picture disc you could buy if you were from Spotify, or the version that you could buy if you ordered it from Blood Records in a 17-minute window that was announced randomly 6 weeks before the album came out. I'm not the kind of person that has hundreds of pounds lying around in a bank account just waiting for The Cure to release a new album so I can buy all the different editions on vinyl. I'm not that kind of person. And so therefore, obviously, I didn't. But so, yeah, Songs of a Lost World. So this is the Cure's #1 album in many countries. It was #1 in the UK, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Holland, Poland, Sweden and Switzerland. In Europe alone, in the UK, it outsold the rest of the top 10 combined in its week of release. And I'm sure part of that was because there were so many different bloody vinyl editions of it that were released. They didn't even do an in-store for it to sell copies that were linked to the CD. They just did a gig. More on that later, I think. Is this my album of the year? Well, I'm probably going to do an album of the year kind of episode later. But in short, Songs of a Lost World isn't just my album of the year. It's very possibly my album of the decade. Certainly my favourite of the past few years so far. There will be others that will come out. I know there's another band that are going to release an incredible album next year that they haven't even finished recording. I've heard a few songs from it. They are bangers. I hate the word banger, because the word banger implies that it's somehow some kind of weird party bus, Venga bus, put a donk on it, dunka dunka dunka. Bangers means something very different to me. It means that the song is like, it encapsulates or it covers you in everything. It envelopes you in the sound. That's a banger to me. A banger isn't something that gets everybody on the floor dancing out loud. Ooh, no, that's for somebody else, because obviously I don't have feelings and don't show emotions. Although music is my way of accessing emotions and sometimes being able to express them. So we start off, well, I mean, as I did say, the very first tendrils of this album came with the performance of 2 songs in 2016 and 2018. Those songs being It Can Never Be the Same and Step Into the Light, both of which were released in studio form on Cure's anniversary and curation box set from 2019. This features 2 live shows, one from London's Royal Festival Hall in 2018 and the other one from Hyde Park in 2018 as well. Both shows I was very lucky to be there. I say lucky, but realistically, I've made decisions in my life that have enabled me to go to a lot of shows. You know, this isn't just about luck. There's a degree of making your own luck. Now that sounds very entrepreneurial, very Elon Musk, and as we all know, Elon Musk is not an example of the smartest human being on the planet. But I made decisions in my life at various points. Those decisions included things like moving to London, making decisions about jobs, sacrificing my time in order to turn it into money, in order to turn that money into experiences, and those experiences that I kind of enjoy and have chosen, because not because money provides a degree of, obviously, freedom. It provides a degree of power. It provides a degree of ability and agency, because some things you just have to have money to experience. You can't blake your way onto the guest list for everything, and there certainly isn't a guest list if you want to get a train somewhere. You just have to pay a ticket, pay for the ticket, and get on board. People get ready indeed. And so, I've made decisions about parts of my life, and one of those decisions was I'd make a decision about working for a living, and I would do a certain degree of work, and then that would transform itself into what the rest of my life is going to be. Hang on, there's a bit of reflection. I need to work on that. We'll be back in a second. That's better. I'd noticed that there was a reflection behind me on the screen, and that was distracting, so I've decided to put something there to stop you from seeing it, because who wants to have a look at that? Not many people, I imagine. Right, so yes, I've made decisions in the course of my life, sacrifices. I'm sure many of us make similar decisions around what am I going to do with my time? Am I going to sell my time for money? Am I going to not sell my time for money? And if I'm going to sell my time for money, what am I going to do with it? Because ultimately, as a great Jarvis Cocker sang, what's the point of being rich if you don't know what to do with it? And by the way, I am not rich, especially not given the number of records that I've bought over the years. Nonetheless, I made the decision to move to London. I made the decision to work. I made the decision to follow a certain career path that I thought had a certain degree of money in it that matched my skills and my personality. And I put myself in the position where I was able to buy tickets for shows, and I was able to get to shows in London if that's what I wanted to do, and I did. And so therefore, actually, being able to see the Cure at Hyde Park, being able to see them at the Royal Festival Hall and other places is part of the fruits of those labours. Some people go on holiday, they go on a cruise, they go golfing. I go to small rooms and I see bands play songs that are sad, and that's my holiday, as I go back and I feel miserable for a bit, and that's actually what makes me happy. And as someone once said, we're not happy till you're not happy. And that's a strange way of looking at it, but there you are. So the first two songs from this period come from the Cure's Curation and Anniversary release in 2018. And then in May 2019, the band went into the studio. They went into Rockfield Studios in Wales, where the Stone Roses recorded The Second Coming, and where Queen recorded Bohemian Rhapsody, and where the Wonder Stuff recorded parts of their Never Loved Elvis album, and where lots of other records have been made that I don't like quite as much as those ones. And they recorded for a month, effectively went off grid, so set it up so it was like 1969 in there. And this I know because I watched the Robert Smith interview on one of the TV channels or something at some point, and then came out with an initial version of what was going to be Songs of a Lost World, which was originally going to be called Live from the Moon. And the reason it was going to be called Live from the Moon is because the last song on this album was inspired by the view in a starry night, which looked the same as the night that man first stood on the moon in 1969. And so the band wanted to recapture the experience that they'd never really had. And what was it like in 1969? You have board games, you have lager, probably casual racism, which is not the Cure's way, bad behaviour, all that type of thing. And Robert Smith remembered as a child looking up at the sky and looking at the moon and going, there's people on that. There's people on the moon. And it must be a strange feeling. When I look at the moon, sometimes I forget people have been on there. I forget that there's probably right now a lunar rover barreling around somewhere, kind of like, with a little Santa hat on, taking pictures of rocks or something. Maybe the Chinese have exploded a nuclear bomb on there. I don't know. It's weird stuff. Weird stuff indeed. But the band came out of Rockfield in 2019 with an initial version of many, many songs. Apparently enough songs to make 3 albums, of which they then kind of refined that down relatively recently. So the songs were then taken on tour in 2022. And there was the Songs of a Lost World tour, which I saw 5 shows of, supported by the Twilight Saturn, which I obligatorily have to mention every once in a while. And this is the set list for the last Wembley show. So that's the last Cure show on the Songs of a Lost World tour, featuring a number of new songs, including Alone and Nothing Is Forever. Endsong is there as well. I think I Can Never Say Goodbye. And there was a total of 5 new songs that were played during the course of that tour. So there was, I think, Alone and Nothing Is Forever, A Fragile Thing, I Can Never Say Goodbye, and Endsong. And in 2023, when the band played America, they added another new song called Another Happy Birthday. So there was a total of 9 songs, I think, maybe 8 songs that the band had played live before the album had come out. And there was this sense that you could kind of piece together what the album was going to be, especially since they've been kind of positing and advertising. A Fragile Thing will be the 3rd song on the album, and Nothing Is Forever will be the 2nd song on the album. But the first kind of fruits of that were some posters that I think were put up at the Rocket in Crawley, which was the site of one of the band's first gigs, a little bit of very, very low-key media stuff. And the idea was, after 16 years, The Cure were finally going to release a new record. And I mean, I must admit, I thought for a long time Songs of a Lost World was vaporware. I thought it was something that would never come out. It'd be like the Duke Nukem Forever of goth, or possibly that immortal 4th Sisters of Mercy LP, which is still not even been recorded, as far as I know. And with Songs of a Lost World, I think the thing is, because it was 16 years between albums, so much had changed. And that was something which had to run through the record like a stick of rock. The concept of time passing, friendships changing, deaths of friendships, deaths of people, deaths of lovers, of history, kind of almost writing over people and erasing people. And the idea is that once somebody dies, there's not necessarily going to be anything left of them. And I think from a historical perspective, by the way, you go to graveyards in 100 years' time, most people are going to go, there's no record of anybody that died. They're going to go to, Douglas Adams' gravestone, maybe he's got one, or David Bowie's one, and they're going, he was cremated and his ashes were scattered somewhere. There's no evidence of David Bowie's gravestone at all, which actually is quite good, because if there's one in Paris, no doubt it'd be, scrawled in felt tip pen with lightning bolts on it, like Jim Morrison's grave, which I've been to. And the other thing that happened is, I think a lot of people say this is their album of the year, or this is the best Cure album in ages. Oh, they're amazing, they're back. They never went away, okay? The Cure never went away. They stopped releasing records for a little bit, but they were still playing live very, very frequently. The biggest gap between Cure shows was 2 years and 2 months, and that was between April the 20th, 2009, and approximately May the 31st, 2011, when they played the Reflection show at Sydney. And ever since then, the band played on a very regular basis. I don't think they played it well. I mean, there weren't any shows between about August 2019 and October 2022, which is 3 years and 2 months. But the Cure didn't go away. Everything stopped because of COVID. The Cure were planning live shows. They were planning to play a one-off show in Poland in 2020 and finish the recording of the album. But COVID had different plans. So to think that the Cure have suddenly come back is they never went away. And it does annoy me. And I as somebody who's been loyal to the band over the years, and I talked about this in the Wild Mood Swings episode, is that sometimes bands age out and they grow away and they think a Cure is for adolescence and not just for life, and they kind of go away and they go, oh, they're a bit rubbish now because I don't like the new stuff. And it's not that the Cure were rubbish, it's just the Cure changed and you changed in different directions. And then after a certain period of time, kind of people come back to bands, and I've seen this with the Wonder stuff recently as well, is that things that stopped people from being fans of the band kind of cease to exist. So things like, for example, mortgages, kids, dogs, ill health, all those type of things. There's a period where life gets really, really serious, and it starts about 30 and it probably carries on to about 47, 48, where you kind of sat there and going, okay, so I need to sort out things like, am I going to have a partner? Am I going to have a relationship? What relationship is it going to be for the rest of my life? Am I going to become a parent? There's the menopause, which means that there's a ticking time bomb in some respects, or maybe a burning platform, to use management speak. We're going, if I'm going to have children as a person, there's a certain window, and then that window closes and you can't have children. And sometimes people get really, really close to that window before that happens. And then and sometimes people make decisions around, well, I've got 12, 14 menstrual cycles left. And I'm kind of going, well, I've got 12 to 14 months to make a decision about whether I'm going to have kids or not. And these are the kind of things where in life you kind of go through certain things, and it demands upon your time. And I totally get it, because it can be exhausting to be an adult, Certainly I spend a lot of time being an adult, and I spend a lot of time being exhausted. And how much of those two are related, I don't really know. But to think that the Cure just went away and stopped being good, and suddenly you've come back to them, it feels a little weird to me, because like for me, music was something that I always stayed in touch with forever. Something I always listened to. It was always there. I never stopped my love of music, never for a second of a day. I thought this is a part of me, and possibly on the fact that I'm, a bold middle-aged man talking to a mobile phone on his in his record room makes me part of a certain very specific demographic. But also at the same point, music was always there. It wasn't that the band went away, it's that you went away. And suddenly to come back and go, oh, Cure are amazing. And it's like, they've always been amazing. Just go to see the Joes. Watch them when they're on television. They've always been bloody brilliant. And that is, I try not to be snobby about it, but it doesn't take a huge amount of effort to go to Spotify and type in the name of a band and listen to the new stuff. It doesn't take a huge amount of effort, if they're not on Spotify, to go and order the CD from their website. Just do it and listen to it. And if you don't like it, fine, you've put 10, 15 quid in a band's pocket. And maybe you don't like what they've done, but you've put the money in the pocket, and that's helped them keep going. Because it's all about that at the end of the day. The concept of the 1,000 true fans, or obviously if you're an Iron Maiden, the 1,000,000 true fans, will buy everything that you do. And then you use that as kind of like your barometer that allows you the financial security to be able to continue. And I thought this album wasn't necessarily going to come out. I really didn't. Even though Robert said, we could have put out an album every couple of years. And they could have flogged themselves, and they could have done all manner of things. But I think Robert was burnt by their 413 Dream experience, where he basically compromised and released half an album, with the idea that he'd released the 414 Scream album not long after. And we only really got one half of the series. Like you only got 2 seasons of the Tripods. Or, for example, if you're watching Star Wars and somebody switches it off as soon as they turn off the tracking, the beam for the Death Star, so that they can escape, you kind of go, but I'm missing the Darth and the Darth and Luke fight. I'm missing, Ben's death. Sorry, spoilers, but the film's been around 47 years, so frankly, it's on you if you haven't seen it by now. I'm missing the X-wing fight at the end of the film. I'm missing the bit why doesn't Chewie get a medal? And so, for example, for 414 Scream, there's these 13, 14 Cure songs, which are effectively the second half, the bookend of the first half of the album. We haven't heard them. We haven't heard them because of record company bullshit and politics. So there's somebody somewhere that has made a decision about record company that's made a decision, and that means we haven't had a Cure album for the past 16 years. And shame on you, whoever you are, you're messing with art. And we will not forget who you are, because even if I don't like 414 Dream, I would have liked to have the chance to fucking listen to it. And you've pissed off the people that create the art, and that is really, really annoying. So I thought this album might never come. I think I might have said that when on episode 299, when I talked about the 2022 tour, is this album might never have happened. And now that it has happened, there's also another 2 Cure albums that are lined up, which are in states of recording. Robert Smith is finishing the second one, I think, and if he doesn't get it finished by the end of January, it probably won't come out next year. I'd love to hear that. Hopefully that's got It Can Never Be the Same, Step Into the Light, and Another Happy Birthday on it, and Bodium Sky as well. Oh, I need to mention Bodium Sky. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We've got this, and if this is the last Cure album that's ever made, I think it's a fabulous way to bow out. And as I've said, it's not just my album of the year so far, it's my favourite album so far of the decade. That might change, but it might not. I don't know. It depends if the Cure stick out another 2 albums in the next couple of years. Who knows? The thing that I think really, really matters is that when you're at the Cure stage, if you make an album, it's because you want to. If you release an album, it's because you want to. If you do something, it's because that's what you really, really want to do. So this is from the heart. This isn't we need to write 10 songs and stick it out so we can go on tour and make a bit of money. which may have happened with a couple of albums. I think Robert Smith said The Top was one of his least favourite albums for precisely that reason. Whereas this one is a product and a labour of love, and you can really feel that and hear that. And it's also, by the way, heavily influenced by post-rock. So the fact that Alone is 6.5 minutes long, and it's 3 minutes before you get any singing. Endsong is equally quite a weighty track, and the vocals kick in probably about 3 minutes in, and that's a punishing epic to play. Really, you can hear in this album Robert's love of experimental music. I say post-rock because post-rock is really rock music, but it's without standard rock structures like verse, chorus, and so on. And it's a genre I love, and I am so pleased that one of my favourite bands in that genre have actually, after 4 failed announcements, actually look like they're playing in April next year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them. Their name is Oh Hiroshima. I think they're fantastic. And if you see a bald man with glasses down the front having feelings in a built-up area, actually there's probably going to be quite a few of us, so you won't. I'll blend into the crowd, right? There you are. So let's go with this album because I've spent 20 minutes talking about it and I haven't even got to it. So the first thing that was released from the album was this, November, a 2-song live EP recorded in France in November 2022. This was a limited edition. I think it was 5,000 from Naked Records. It took about 3 hours to sell out, and it comes on bio vinyl, which is presumably, some snobs are saying, oh, I'm not going to buy it because it's deliberately going to degrade. I think the bio vinyl is going to degrade over so long that it isn't going to matter by the time you die about that. But here it is. It's And Nothing Is Forever, live in Montpellier on the 8th of November 2022, and on the B-side, I Can Never Say Goodbye, 2 live recordings from the tour. And this is one of the rarer Cure records, certainly recently, with maybe 5,000 copies or so that have come out. Each one is hand numbered, each one is pressed on bio vinyl. It's a little frustrating that it's artificially limited, because I've never been into the concept of artificially limiting the supply of anything, including gig tickets. But this one also, by the way, is a little known story, is 116 copies of this were lost in the post. My copy was one of those. And that, when I say lost in the post, what I meant was that it had been scanned, but somebody at DPD had forgotten to pick up the box and take it out of the warehouse. So it was sat on a shelf and nobody was looking at it. And it was only when 116 people emailed and went, we haven't had our record yet, that they said, oh yeah, we found the box. Not ideal for your biggest high profile release on a new fledgling label. I think this is Naked number 7. But on the other hand, I ordered it within about 2 minutes of it going on sale. Normally that works, doesn't always work. And I finally got a copy. And I was holding on until this copy came through my post box before I did my episode, because it took a little while to come. Although it was officially released, I think, on the 1st of October, it didn't arrive in my post box until early December. And early December, as you probably know, I was on tour seeing both Hope of the States and Twilight Sad quite a lot of times, because I like sad music made on guitars. So obviously I'm a huge Cure fan, as you've probably already worked out. This picture on the front is taken from the screen projection that's used for And Nothing Is Forever, I believe, where at the end Simon kind of raises his bass in tribute to those that have gone. And Nothing Forever is a song that I'll talk about when I get into the record a little bit later. But before we get to that, we then get into the album itself that was released on, I think, 31st of October, possibly 1st of November 2024. And I have multiple versions of it. So here is the limited edition white vinyl. I think this was the website exclusive from thecure.com. And there are 2 different masterings of this album on vinyl, depending upon which version you get. And I need to point that out. So the white vinyl version is mastered by Miles Showell at Abbey Road, according to what it says on here. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, Miles Showell at Abbey Road Studio. So this is a mastering that's not on every edition of the record. And if you're the kind of person that's really into remasters and different versions and so on and so forth, well, frankly, you need to get a life. It's the music that matters and not the mastering. But that's another conversation. This version here, this is the Indie Stores retail exclusive on marble stone heavyweight biovinyl, mastered by Brian Lucy and Bernie Grundman. So this is again a different mastering of it. So if you buy the retail version from Indie Stores, you get a different version, even though it looks the same. It has a different inner sleeve, which is so on and so forth. It has biovinyl that's there. Marble looks lovely going on your turntable, but it don't count for squat if the album's not good. And you do get a Songs of a Lost World fold-out poster. If any of you have blue-tacked this to your bedroom walls, congratulations, it's 1987, and you are 14 again. There is a theory that, you know, the version of you at 51 is basically just a 50-year-old version of you, but with a little bit more money and a little bit more maturity. Or as Michelangelo said when he was talking about his statue of, I've forgotten his name now. He said, I just chipped away all the bits that didn't look like him. And that's who you are, you know. I'm 51-year-old me. He's kind of like just 15-year-old me, but with more pocket money and a bit more maturity and a bit more experience about a couple of things. So I'm still buying lots of Cure albums, by the way. So, you know, I'm still in touch with 15-year-old me, that's for sure. So there are two masterings here, and the white vinyl of the album, mastered by Miles Showell, Abbey Road, and this bio-vinyl version mastered by Bernie Grundman. And then we have the Asai Records edition, which is limited to 500, comes with what's called an Obi strip, and is numbered, hand-numbered. This one is number 173 of 500. This sold out in about 3 days. So if you're spending a fortune for it on eBay, don't. It's exactly the same as your standard marble version, except for the fact that it's got a little bit of paper on it. Don't bother getting it. And then released relatively recently, my fourth vinyl edition is the Blood Moon edition of Songs of a Lost World. This is a double LP featuring a gatefold sleeve, which shows the rotating version of the LP cover. And the LP cover is based upon a sculpture called, I think, Bagatelle, by an artist called Ginez Pernat, which was made in 1975. The Blood Moon edition of it, if you're going to buy one vinyl edition, this is the one to get, because this has got the most music on. So it's got the Blood Red Moon here of the studio LP, one LP. Let's see who mastered that. I can barely read it. This version mastered by Miles Showell at Abbey Road on the Blood Red Moon version. And then the second disc is Instrumentals. So Instrumentals, the LP, again, I believe mastered by Miles Showell at Abbey Road, again on Blood Red vinyl. And actually, it's lovely to get the instrumental versions of the songs on here, because what that does do is it allows you to really kind of live within the songs and understand the instrumental textures. Because, as you know, I'm a big lyrics guy, I'm a big vocals guy. I listen to lyrics and vocals, I follow them deeply and passionately. But at the same point, there's obviously a lot of work that goes into the instrumentals that can get overlooked by a bad lyric. And a bad lyric can undo all the good work that you've got from an amazing piece of music. And there are some bands that I like less because their lyrics are just simply atrocious. Yes, I'm going to name names here. The Mission, their lyrics are not great. Sorry, Mission fans. Musically, fab. Lyrically, not fab at all. So the Blood Moon edition of it, if you're going to get a vinyl version of the album, get the Blood Moon edition with the instrumentals on, because frankly, more bang for your buck. More music, and music is what it's all about. Everything else is packaging and artifice. Or if you're going to get a CD version, get the 3 CD version, which is here in a limited edition. It features the album, an instrumental version of the album, and an Atmos mix on a Blu-ray disc. It also features, by the way, and I've mentioned this before, the lyrics to the secret 10th song, which is not on the album, but the lyrics exist on the lyric sheet. It's called Bodium Sky. It's there, and hopefully Bodium Sky is on one of the future albums. But if not, we've got another set of Robert Smith lyrics there to read. And Bodium Sky is around the power of togetherness in being under the same stars, looking at the same sky and experiencing the same things, even if it is from a slightly different angle. The whole of this album, Songs of a Lost World, is all geared around, the lyrics are obviously very, very miserable, the music is very miserable. Some people are saying it's their best album since Bloodflowers, or their best album since Disintegration. I think it's really, really good, but each Cure album exists on its own and can't really be compared to say it's the best album since, one or the other. The album it most closely reminds me of is Bloodflowers, and I hated Bloodflowers when it came out because that's not where I was as an individual. I needed hope, and Bloodflowers definitely didn't have any hope in it at the time. Whereas now, this album feels more like a mature reckoning, somebody facing the passing of time and coming up with ideas around, well, what does that mean? How does that work? What is life and what's it all about? And what's growing to be old, going to be like, and so on and so forth. And it's a really important thing because to me, art is the prism through which we see the world. It's the way in which we experience realities. And one of the things about any art, whatever it is, films, books, poetry, a sculpture, even a comedian, is you go, I'd never thought of that. I'd never seen the world in that way. And there's a great song by the band Haver, which I think is called Love to Give. And it has a line about black holes that suck you in and spit you out. And I was like, oh, I'd never thought about that. That's brilliant, isn't it? That's about the transactional relationship of love being like a black hole. And maybe I thought I was thinking too much about it. But it was a great little lyric. I had a chat with Billy Kennedy very briefly, who was in the band and wrote that lyric about that. And then I told him about the Disney film, The Black Hole, which he'd never heard of. So if you're watching The Black Hole and think it's rubbish, sorry, Billy, sorry, but not that sorry, because you could have really, really liked it. I don't know. So song one, the single from the album, is called Alone. It's about 6.5 minutes long. 3 minutes of it are instrumental. It doesn't really have a chorus. It opened every show on the 2022-23 tour, and at least 2 of them in 2024. It takes an inspiration from a poem by Ernest Dovian called Dregs, and there's a line in Dregs, which is about when you come to the end of your life, what's left, the dregs of your life, the stuff at the bottom of the coffee cup. And it's also, I think, inspired by that quote about we live as we die alone. I'm going to reckon that's Edgar Allan Poe, and if it isn't, well, it should be, because it sounds like the type of thing that Edgar Allan Poe would say, and not the ancient Klingon proverb that revenge is a dish best served cold, and it is very cold in space. Alone is, to me, all of these songs are about how we have shared experiences as humans with our friends, with our lovers, with our family, but at the same point, our individual interpretation and experience of each one of those events is completely unique and different, and that's absolutely fascinating. So the lyric to Alone, the idea of cold and afraid, the ghosts of all that we've been, we toast with bitter dregs to our emptiness. The idea of going at the end of a life, what is left? What is left? And you're judged by a few things. 1, you're judged by all that you can't leave behind. 2, you're judged by what you've done in your life. How have you treated the people around you? How have you made them feel? Do people think that you're friendly? Do people think that you're funny? Or do people think that you're an arsehole? Have you been selfish? And that selfishness has then transferred itself into having or losing friends, or treating people appallingly, because that's how people will remember you. That one little transaction with you, you may be, and I remember now, like, the only memory I have of a particular individual is that they were really, really rude at a hotel. That's all I know about them. And I, struggle to get past that. So all the other things that they've done in their life, whether they've loved, whether they're good to cats, the only thing I've got from that person is they're really rude and selfish and stupid. And then you go, that's what's left. And I have to talk about something that's happening in my personal life, so I'm not on speaking terms with my brother, and I may not be in future. And in the conversations that have been leading up to that particular moment, one of the things that he said is that he quoted, and I cannot believe this, Robin Gibbs' eulogy at a funeral of one of the other Gibbses from the fucking Bee Gees, which is, in the end, the conflict means nothing. And to me, that's not the approach to take in life. Because if the only thing that you seek to do is to avoid conflict, you end up becoming a person that's being taken advantage of by other people that manipulate your better nature and your kindness. And there comes a point in certain people's actions where you have to stand up and go, well, actually, if I don't stand for something, I'll stand for nothing. You know, every time that I allow certain behaviours in my life that are unacceptable and disrespectful, I actually disrespect myself, I disrespect my own identity and my own integrity, and I diminish myself. And I'll be polite about it. In my opinion, my brother's behaviour has been extremely selfish, it's been myopic, and it's been abusive in so much as treating other people without any respect, dignity or care for how they feel about certain things. I've told him a certain behaviour of his is something that I find quite disrespectful, quite hurtful, quite cruel. And his response to me has seemed to be, so, that's your problem. I'm like, well, actually, it's not, I hold myself in enough self-worth to be able to stand up for a certain situation and go, I don't think this is right. And if you don't do that, then you're in a position which is going to be quite difficult, because you're going to be telling other people what you accept from your actions. And that's kind of where I am. So the idea that conflict means nothing is ultimately, at the end of your life, you look at what you've left behind, how you've treated people, how you've made them feel. And if you've made them feel bad, then, part of your journey on this planet is not to just solely follow your own completely selfish instincts. But as Billy Connolly said, which is also quoted on, I think, a song by the Waterboys, is to look after all your other human beings, leave the world in a better place, and leave a better mark on the planet, and make the world a slightly better place for you having been there. And not everybody can do that, and not everybody can do it at all. And so Dregs, as a song, kind of comes from the idea of what is left at the end when we die. Where do we go? What do we become? What is left of all these things? And mortality is a thing that's on my mind as well at the moment. I'm certainly older now by a number of months than my mum has ever been, or ever will be, of course, because she died a few days after her 51st birthday. And I'm past that now by quite a margin. So I'm going, well, I have to think about the fact that my time on this planet is limited, and what I do with my time, i.e. talking to my mobile phone to very, very small numbers of people about an album I really, really like, is that useful? Is that what I want to do? Well, the answer is yes, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. Because outside of work, we should be able to do pretty much what we would like to do, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. And we need to be able to understand how our actions could hurt other people and behave appropriately around that. So this is the theme of Alone. We live as we die alone. Where does it go? What happens? Do we become just another form of energy that vanishes off into the cosmos? Where did it go? Where did it go? What do we become? That's a really important question. And hopefully the people in my life will think that, having me around was better than not having me around. And if they don't, then, I've massively misjudged how people see me. And of course, the people that are going to be watching this many, many years from now, assuming YouTube still exists, when I am some demented old fool rabbiting on about Depeche Mode in 2077 or something, when I'm like 104 years old. When The Cure played Alone live, the song had a backdrop, which actually I never really paid much attention to until about the fourth or fifth show. And I realised that it went from showing a view of stars to showing the Earth, this little dot, and then this tiny little blue dot floating in the vast bleakness and blackness of space, coming closer and closer and closer to the screen. And then suddenly kind of moving down into that planet and seeing the seas and the lands and all of that before it faded away. The idea that it was positing you from space onto a lost world itself, opening up the show conceptually, which I thought was pretty clever. and also reflects the theme that show comes through in the last song of the LP, which is the view from the moon, and that picture of the Earth, half crescent of the Earth, floating alone on space, and the person taking the photograph, thinking, I can see every single person who's alive right now out of that window, apart from myself, apart from one person. And that's a pretty amazing thought to have. That is to realise how small we are, and how that ties into Zaphod Beeblebrox's infinite perspective, total perspective vortex, where there's like a tiny little picture of Zaphod Beeblebrox, or a tiny little, most people it would reduce their ego to nothing, but Zaphod came out, yeah, I am really that important, really interesting. And of course you can tie Douglas Adams into everything, and I know that there's probably going to be one Douglas Adams fan at least who's going to be watching this, so hi Bear, hope you're okay. Second song on the album is And Nothing Is Forever, and of course And Nothing Is Forever is the A-side of the single here. Well, it doesn't really feel like a single. It's a song about a promise to someone to be there with them at the moment of death, on a deathbed, is to be there, and to and also ties in actually with the B-side, I Can Never Say Goodbye, because the moment at which you want to say goodbye to somebody is the moment at which you can't, because they've already left. Now I have been with a couple of humans when they've died. I've been with one cat when she died. I held her paw as she went very, very recently. It was a very profound experience, actually, is to be there human and with them as they go, and to know that they're surrounded by love. A really important moment is, the dignity of life is as important as the dignity of death, and to be able to have a death which is the exit that you want from the world as much as is humanly possible. And Nothing Is Forever is about that sort of being, however far away, I will always love you. It's a love song to a person, and to go, I will be with you and part of your life on a permanent basis. And of course, the flip side of that is, that's a promise that you make, the other person has to be worth it, and you have to be worthy of that person as well, which isn't always the case at all. And then song 3 is A Fragile Thing, the second single, or third or fourth, depending, because the concept of singles is somewhat elastic. It's been released from the album, released as a limited edition 7-inch, early December this year. Yeah, I bought it. Would I ever let you down? And here it comes on white vinyl with 2 Robert Smith remixes, one an RS mix and one the RS remix. And effectively one's a radio edit and the other one is a Robert Smith remix of A Fragile Thing. So this is the 7-inch. I think you can still buy this for about £12.99. So, if you're the kind of sad record collector like me, go Gadget Boots, go and get it. A Fragile Thing is a great song. I love it to bits. And the concept around that is there's nothing you can do to change it back. The love is a fragile thing. And then the second verse opens with the line, every time you leave me is a lie. So A Fragile Thing is actually a really powerful song about the power of love that changes and transforms over time. The idea that love needs 2 people for it to work, that it's resilient, it's powerful, that there's a connection. At the same point, it's fragile. And it can get lost, and it can get broken, or it can endure, or it can run out of steam, and it's something that needs to be nurtured and something that needs to be cared for. It's not something that always can endure for long periods of time. I've been in relationships where I've experienced everything in a very compact period of time, sometimes a few hours, and that moment existed, that communication and that connection existed, and whilst that still exists, it's in a thin tendril as that other person kind of winds their way through the universe and lives their own life, is that we've had shared history, whatever that history is, and however that history manifests itself in their minds, and however long it lasts. Love is a fragile thing. None of the songs on this are, by the way, happy, clappy, go lucky, Cure songs. There's no Doing the Unstocks on here. There's nothing like Just Like Heaven. It's all miserable, doom and gloom, and frankly, I'd never change it. If I was a Cure fan, ever, would I change that? But I know that some people are going, I wanted something a little different. I've heard a couple of people say that, you know, for example, say for the singles, and Nothing Is Forever and A Fragile Thing, they're kind of going, it's not really what I wanted from The Cure. It's like, well, the job is not it's not a service industry, not to give you what you want, but to give you what they think you need, and also to be true to themselves and to make the best artistic statement that they can about who they are and what they believe in. And that's the role of an artist, is to be true to themselves. Because if you end up doing as other people tell you, you might as well get a proper day job, right? I'm not to say that being in a band isn't a proper day job, but you might as well go in an office and get a pension scheme and all that, as opposed to anything else. So A Fragile Thing is not, you know, one of those amazing Cure singles. It's an important song. It's a really good song, but it's not an instant pop hit at all. Side one of the LP, on most versions, ends with War Song, which is, in one way, it's a nod to the Disintegration album. It features a harmonium, and it's based on an angular riff. Hang on a minute, that isn't. The song itself is the key to this. It's built on a standard repeating riff that varies slightly as it goes through, but it's built on a riff that isn't in the final mix of the song. So and this was where the re-recording, remixing took place in 23-24. So after the Songs of a Lost World tour, between about October and July, October 22, July 23, Robert went back into the studio, did some remixing, some overdubbing, re-sang some versions of some songs, binned all of that, but did take the riff of War Song off the album. So it's built around a riff that you can't hear in the final mix. And it's a great song, it really is, but it's not easy, it's not straightforward, it's quite dark, it occupies roughly the same space as Fascination Street. And it's got a lyric around, for example, the arguments and conflicts that exist between people. So wounded pride, vengeful anger, burning deep inside, poison in our blood and pain, broken dreams, mournful hopes, for all we might have been, all misunderstood. But no way out of this, no way for us to find a way to peace we've never found before. And I think this is one of the things I was talking about when I was talking about earlier about Alone, about conflicts between people, is that sometimes you do have to stand up for yourself and what you believe in, even if the other person doesn't necessarily agree with you. That's one of the things that comes to me through War Song. You flip the album over, side 2, or side 3, actually, if you've got a double album kind of version of it, in which point Endsong takes up one side of the album. With Drone No Drone. And Drone No Drone is fine, but I don't have much to say about it, really. We're singing, I'm pretty much done staring down the barrel of the same warm gun, down, deeper and down. No, that's status quo, isn't it? And yeah, I'm pretty much done. So let's go to I Can Never Say Goodbye. Obviously, I Can Never Say Goodbye, B-side of the Naked single. So actually, I should probably turn this over like that. And that's about the death of his brother, Richard. He was a little bit older. But there's also death has surrounded the band. Roger, I think, was battling cancer. I think Simon's brother died. I think Simon's ex-wife died. Robert's brother died. And there's that line about I can never say goodbye. And you can't say goodbye to the people, because at the moment you need to say goodbye to them, they aren't there. They've already, exited stage left. And the other thing is, and this was a really unusual experience I didn't really grasp at the time, is when Robert sang I Can Never Say Goodbye in Cardiff. Richard lived near Cardiff. Robert said he'd been to Cardiff a lot. He'd just not been there to sing. He hadn't played a show there since 1996, but he did see his brother a lot. And so therefore, playing in Cardiff, playing the streets which he'd seen his brother in, driving past the bars, taking the motorways and the trains to the places where he'd seen him a lot. It must be quite, like, for example, when I go back to Birmingham now, and I think of the people that I used to know who live there and who don't live there anymore, and the people or the streets that used to look big, and the town that used to look like a city, and the people that used to talk to me. It's all that thing about this is where history happened. This is where a huge chunk of my history happened. And much like ghosts, memories exist in our mind about certain places. There are roads where I think of certain individuals. There are songs which always remind me exactly of certain places in my life. There's a particular song that always reminds me of the time when I was in a room with somebody and they told me that their feelings had changed and that we couldn't be an item, we couldn't be together anymore. And that's like burnt into me, you know, like a brand on the side of a bit of cattle. It's just one of those moments where there's key points in your life where things happen and you kind of go, so my life is going to go this way or that way. Sliding doors moment, if you want to think about it. And you remember those very, very clearly. And so I think probably for singing I Can Never Say Goodbye in Cardiff was quite emotional because that was the town that he spent a lot of time with his brother in. I suspect he had a better relationship with his brother than I currently do. Penultimate song is All I Ever Am. Got some great drums on this, by the way, but I don't remember much more about it than that, apart from I think too much of all that's gone or how it was before. Obsessed with choices, in ignorance of history and consequences. It's a fine lyric, but it's an album that's very clearly staring down the barrel of mortality. And then we have the last song on the album, which is Endsong. Endsong is a beastie. It closed, as I said, every show on the 22-23 tour there, or at least closed the main set of every show. And it's this enormous, huge, post-rock style epic. Massive introduction, very repetitive, but with slight variations as the song goes through various kind of iterations of verse, chorus, verse. So you can feel where the vocal is going to come in before the first time you hear it. And at the same point, it also has not a limited, but it has a very expressive vocal, which very, very clearly kind of points out that, you know, I'm outside in the dark staring at the blood red moon, remembering the hopes and dreams that I had and all I had to do, and wondering what became of that boy and the world he called his own. Now that is talking about and telescoping back to the childhood version of himself, the version of himself that was staring through a telescope in the night sky and then watching man walk on the moon in 1969 and remembering all of those things. And that's why, by the way, the double album version of this is the Blood Red Moon edition, because it was a blood red moon the night that he wrote that, and there's the blood red there. And you can see that the cover there, Bagatelle, when you look at it and it rotates, it looks like the moon going through its various cycles as a crescent and so on before it comes back to the colour that it originally is. And the concept of, and still doing it today, is looking out into the night sky and going, there's people out there. You know, there's people right now that are flying above me on the ISS space station. They're right above you, unless you're watching this on the ISS space station, at which point, if you are, please tell me, because it would be nice to know if I've gone to space. I know some people have watched me on airplanes. That's lovely, in places I have never been and never will be. But if you are watching this on the ISS space station, do please comment. And if you aren't, don't pretend that you are, because I will know, okay? I will know. And that brings the album to a close with Endsong, which is a magnificent epic track of you know, repetition and beauty. And this is just one of the best albums that The Cure have made. It's one of my favourite albums of the past few years. It reflects where I am, having a good old-fashioned midlife crisis about mortality and death, tied in with the death of a family member in my world, who I am now far older than they will ever be, for example, ever could be. And that's playing on my mind. And every once in a while, you need to remember that all we are is just dust in the wind, dude, as Bill and Ted said. Or as I like to think of it, we are ghosts driving meat skeletons on a ball of rock, orbiting a huge ball of fire in the middle of vast nothingness, because I'm nothing if not a cheery, chipper son of a bitch. There are a couple of other things before we get to the end of this. The instrumental version of it is fantastic. Please listen to that. It is available on this double LP, the Blood Red Moon edition, and available on this, the 3-disc compact disc edition. There's another song, Another Happy Birthday, that was premiered on May 23 at the Hollywood Bowl, which was first written in 1997, and it sounds similar instrumentally to a track called Lost Flower No. 1, which was on the Blood Flowers demo tapes. There is also A Boy I Never Knew, which hopefully we will get a studio recording of and has been played live by the band. And there's also, of course, Bodium Sky, which is mentioned in the lyric sheet for this. The last thing that I will mention, and this is not ungracious of me, is that the band have played 3 shows to promote the album. One to an empty BBC theatre, another one to a BBC theatre of competition winners, about 350 people. And the last show at the Troxy, which was a public show, to 3,000 people. 1,200 tickets were sold. 1,800 tickets were complimentarily provided to industry people, liggers and wankers, including a number of people that didn't like the band and a number of people that don't care and have never seen the band before. And, you know, there's people that flew over from Australia who didn't have a ticket, who stood outside, who were gifted tickets by the Universal rep. So 20 minutes before the band came on stage, Universal rep came out and handed out tickets to the people that didn't have them. If I'd have known that, I'd have bloody gone to the Troxy. But as it stands, I went onto the Dice app, I blinked at the wrong moment, the tickets all sold out, I never had a chance to see The Cure at the show, and it was such a small venue, it was ridiculous. To me, personally, I've never enjoyed the concept of bands playing venues smaller than the band, ever. Doesn't matter which band it is. Doesn't matter if I'm in the venue. You know, I've seen U2 play to 50 people. I've seen them play to 200 people. Now, if you said to me, you could have 72,000 people watching that show, and so therefore there'd be 71,953 people that then would have the opportunity to see that band on that night that otherwise wouldn't. I mean, of course. You know, I want the music that I love and the musicians that I love to be huge and popular, because this music does great things to me. If it does great things to me, I want it to do great things to other people. And if the gig is amazing, I want as many other people as possible on the planet to be able to experience that. So the idea of bands deliberately playing venues that are smaller than demand is something that has always annoyed me, whether I'm in the venue or not, always will annoy me, on the grounds that they could have played Wembley Arena. They could have played the O2 as a one-off show. It wouldn't have affected their ability to sell tickets in Poland or Paris or anything like that. It would have meant that of the people that wanted to go, 17,000 extra people would have been able to see The Cure this year that otherwise wouldn't have been able to see them. And they, like me, wouldn't have been watching the live stream thinking, I bet there is some guy that works at Universal who's just going for a free fucking bar that doesn't care about the fact they've just played Secrets for the first time in 13 years. Or, you know, I don't mind Pedro Pascal going. Pedro Pascal. Because he actually likes the band. And he tweeted the lyrics to one of the songs. And, you know, you don't get to do that if you don't know it. You don't get to do that if you're just some casual that's going, do you want to go and see The Cure on Friday? And you're going to go, well, I might be washing my hair, so yeah, fine, I'll go. Which is definitely how some of the people work. There were lots of empty space in that room. And it's insulting to people to whom The Cure means something, for people to whom The Cure means nothing apart from a Friday night, to know that those people could have gone, and it's not what you know, it's not how much you love the band, but it's who you know. And it's elitist, and music should never be elitist, never should be. Always will be, but never should be elitist. People who are fans of a band shouldn't be shut out of a show because the band have decided to play a venue smaller than the demand. And it's a deliberate decision by the bands. And I've never liked it, and I'm never going to like it. And it doesn't matter if you think I'm annoyed because I didn't get to go. Sure, I would have loved to have gone. But even if I had a ticket, I would have said, actually, I would have much rather the band played the O2 to 20,000 people than the Troxy to 3,000 people. I just find the concept of bands playing venues smaller than they are really bloody annoying. And I always have, and I always will. And I'm never going to shift on that. I haven't. You know, of the 3,000 capacity, 1,800 tickets were comps. And it didn't matter to those people, some of those people, if they'd ever heard a Cure song before. Do you want to go and see it? Yeah, I'll go see The Cure. And it's not right, you know. And to me, it just seems without any heart to deliberately deny people the opportunity to see a band that you love because you want the cachet being able to put sold out on the box office and sold out in 10 seconds or whatever. It's just not nice. So I'll see The Cure next year when they tour. But I didn't get to see The Cure this year And it was nice because, loads of my friends went. They were able to get tickets. And I had a couple of text messages going, "Oh, we're really missing you and we wish you were here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm missing you too. And I wish I was there, but I wasn't." As we just play the cards we dealt, not the ones that we want. And so I haven't experienced Songs of a Live World. I've seen the YouTube stream, which is something different, but I didn't see the band this year. But almost everybody that likes the band didn't see the band this year. And that is in itself quite a shame. But there is always the future. There's always next year. And hopefully there is another Cure album coming. So I'm looking forward to that. And in summary, although I've taken 60 minutes to get to that point, this is one of my favourite albums of the past 5 years. Might be my favourite album of the decade. Feels like it at the moment. I really, really enjoy it. I hope you do too. And if you don't, then go and listen to something you do love, because life is too short for bad music, bad movies, and bad people. And that is where I'm going to wrap up Songs of a Lost World. See you all, hopefully, sometime soon. Ta-ta!